July 11th this evening, and we did have a closed session earlier, but we have nothing to report out of that at this time. So please rise and join me with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And before we begin this evening, I just want to make a statement about the events that happened a couple days ago. As you know, most of you know, there was an officer-involved shooting incident here in Citrus Heights, and we applaud our department for their bravery and for how they handled it. I just want to mention that this is still under investigation, so it would be very inappropriate for any of us to comment on it this evening. So just want to make you aware of that. Okay, let's start then. First item, please.
Is the roll call. Councilmember Daniels?
Here.
Councilmember Middleton is absent. Councilmember Miller?
Here.
Vice Mayor Slowey?
Present.
And Mayor Bruins.
Present.
This meeting of the Citrus Heights City Council is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is closed caption and webcast at citrusheights.net. Tonight's meeting replays on Saturday, July 13th at 6 p.m. and again on Monday, July 15th at 9 a.m. on Channel 14, and a DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is approval of agenda.
Do we have any questions about the agenda?
Move approval. Second.
It's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, it carries. Next item, please.
Next item, presentations. There are none. The next item is comments by council members and regional board updates.
Okay. So, Steve, you want to start us off tonight?
Certainly, I have nothing to report. RT hasn't met, and STA hasn't met, so,
Summer recess.
yes.
Okay, Brett?
No board meetings to report on, and I won't comment on the incident the other night, except to say that I want to express, and I'm sure everybody else feels this way, that the appreciation for the public and the outpouring of support, the blue ribbons up and down Fountain Square and stuff like that. We're a much different city than a lot of cities, and showing that support for our officers means a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff?
So no board meetings, as Steve said, it's summer, or somebody said, summer recess. Jeannie and I did have the Parks 2x2, and part of that will be coming back next month. And again, I know, like Brett, the investigation is also underway, but I do want to thank, the rest of the department who wasn't actually involved in the incident, but, we had dispatchers who it's very stressful while they're on the calls, but all the paperwork and all the investigation that has to be done after, and the fact that that went on for hours. And just appreciate all that everybody's going through to make sure everything is done correctly. So thank you for that, for the men and women of the CHPD.
Okay, thank you. And also, recess for me, I did want to mention that I attended the ribbon cutting for the Union 76 station up on Auburn Boulevard, and for those of you who got the word, they rolled prices back to $2.99 for 2 hours that day, and the lines down the street were reminiscent of the gas wars of the 70s. It was amazing. They did a beautiful job, very nice family-owned operation, so it's another option for us to get good price gas here in Citrus Heights. And then Jeff mentioned the Park 2x2, and the only other thing was I just want to thank PAL for putting on a great extremes camp this week for the kids. Took them horseback riding, rope climbing, and river rafting. So PAL is very active in the summer months and keeps our kids busy. Okay, that's all I have. Next item.
Next item is public comment, and members of the audience may address the council on any item of interest to the public and within the council's purview, or on any agenda item before or during the council's consideration of the item. If you wish to address council, fill out a speaker identification sheet and give it to myself. When you're called upon to speak, step forward to the podium and state your name for the record. Normally, speakers are limited to 5 minutes each, with 30 minutes being allowed for all comments, and any public comments beyond the initial 30 minutes may be heard at the conclusion of the agenda, and the mayor has the discretion to lengthen or shorten the allotted times.
Okay, thank you. We do have a number of speaker sheets, but most of them are on agenda items, so I just have one under public comment, general public comment, and I'd like to call Barry Wyatt forward, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Barry Wyatt. I live at 6039 Dublin Way. And I'm here tonight to talk about the fireworks, the illegal fireworks that were so horrible on the 4th of July last week. And I know that subject kind of probably pales given the current set of circumstances, but I did want to share with you my feelings. My wife and I moved to Citrus Heights in January. We've lived in the Sacramento area for over 30 years, but we moved to the new home, and we absolutely love the neighborhood, love the neighbors. It's we unbelievably enjoy living in this community. 4th of July, about 8:30 at night, the fireworks began, the illegal fireworks began. Behind us is where Farmgate dead ends. To the east of us is Mariposa. To the south of us is Limerick. And there were unbelievable explosions, fireworks shooting into the air. And it basically didn't stop until I finally called the police about midnight. The officers showed up almost immediately and put a halt to it. Probably, I don't know, half an hour after they left, they started again. I know that in speaking with the officers prior to the meeting that lots of work goes into preparation to try to mitigate this problem. But from my standpoint, more needs to be done. And I just felt it was important to come to you tonight to say maybe through putting pressure on Sacramento area governments or pressure on the district attorney's office or pressure on the state legislature to enhance the penalties, that this isn't fair. It isn't fair to have to live in a war zone. And that's what I felt like we were at on the 4th of July. And actually all the way till Sunday night, they kept going at some level. So I want to commend you all for your public service, but I do want to bring this problem to your attention and ask, what is it we can do? What is it as a community we can do? What is it as community leaders you can do to help try to put an end to this absurdity?
Well, I want to thank you for coming forward because my neighborhood is exactly like that as well. And I know that it's probably the worst, well, not probably, it is the worst night of the year for police and fire because the volume is so high, they can't possibly, don't have enough manpower to address all of it. And when I moved up here from Southern California many years ago, all fireworks had been illegal in Southern California for a long time because of the fire hazard. And I was shocked to find out that Sacramento County allowed fireworks. Having said that, I know that it is a moneymaker. You have to be a nonprofit to have Safe and Sane. But honestly, you know, people mix the Safe and Sane in with the illegals, and you can't tell what's going on. So I think I believe, or I concur with you. I think something needs to be done. Part of the problem is that we are so close, we as a community, as a county, are so close to Reno, which is where they're coming in from Nevada, most of them. And people just drive across the border. So the first thing I'd like to see the state do is stop them at the border, you know? So I think it's going to take a concerted effort on many fronts to address this. As a city, we I don't believe, have the power to enact an ordinance of our own if the county allows it, but that's something we can look into. I know the nonprofits won't like it because it's money in their pockets, and I understand that. But I think public safety trumps that. And aside from the pain and agony of animals and just the people with post-traumatic stress or disorder, PTSD, also really suffer
You bet.
during these times. So thank you for bringing it to the public, and let's see what we can do to get this changed.
Okay, I'm available for any other type of efforts that the community wants to put together. Maybe a citizens group could come together to try
Thank
to
you.
address this issue. So thank you very much.
I appreciate your
Thank you for the time.
availability for that. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, that is our only general public comment card. The rest are on couple of different agenda items. So I'm going to move it forward. Next item, please.
Next item is the consent calendar, items 4, 5, and 6.
Okay. Do we have any questions on consent?
Move approval.
A second?
We have a motion and a second to approve our consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, it carries. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearing, number 7. The subject is general plan amendment regarding Sunrise Mall. The recommendation is to adopt a resolution adopting a general plan amendment related to development within the Sunrise Mall property and determining that the project is exempt from CEQA under Section 15305.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Casey Kempinar in the Planning Division. As Amy mentioned, the item before you is a general plan amendment to amend the standards in the Sunrise Mall area, specifically to require a specific plan for that area to ensure that there's orderly development as the mall moves forward. In May, you recommended or asked staff to come back with a plan. In June, we took the item to the Planning Commission for their review, and they unanimously recommended that the council consider it and approve it. So when we talk about Sunrise Mall, this map shows that there's 6 different property owners and about 100 acres of the mall area. About 75 acres of that is parking lot, as you can see from the aerial. So in order to ensure that the mall is developed in an orderly fashion that meets the city's expectations, we have the attached general plan amendment that specifies that the mall is important to the city. The general plan didn't really recognize that it was as important. It recognized the marketplace, but not the mall itself. So the language is intended to recognize the mall as being important, and then it deserves a little extra attention to make sure that it reaches its full potential. So the language says, transform Sunrise Mall into a premier regional destination and a flourishing center of community life where residents and visitors shop, work, live, and play. And the action states that we shouldn't approve any discretionary actions on the Sunrise Mall property until there's a comprehensive plan in place that addresses these 4 different kind of guiding points. And we also want to make sure that the specific plan reflects changing market conditions and provides a sustained economic benefit to the city. So if the council approves the general plan amendment tonight, staff's prepared to release a request for proposals as soon as tomorrow. That process would include a consultant selection, and we anticipate we'd be able to award a contract in the fall. The specific plan process would start in the fall or winter, and that would take about 18 months or so to get through that specific plan process and EIR process in order to have essentially a shovel-ready project. The whole process would include a continuous community engagement with not only the property owners, but the surrounding community and the broader community at large. We have been in constant communication with the different property owners, and they're aware of this process, and we look forward to working with them as the project moves forward. We did receive one email that you should have in your packet from one of the owners as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or that you may have.
Okay. Does anybody have any initial questions, because this is a public hearing? Okay, I'm going to open it for public comment. We have some speakers that would like to make comment on this item. The first one being Dana McFadden.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm very nervous.
So are we.
My name is Dana McFadden, and thank you for allowing this opportunity to voice my opinion on some of the issues that are facing our city. Some of this is general comment, but it segues into them all. I have been a resident of Citrus Heights since 1998 and a homeowner here since 2005. I am very vested in seeing my city thrive and grow in a positive manner. I have been rather surprised to read the rosy articles praising our future building projects and improvements, as I am not having this experience at all. I live in what was once a beautiful and beautifully kept neighborhood called Mariposa Estates, AKA Birdcage Heights. Greenback Lane has seriously deteriorated from the corner of Fountain Square to Fair Oaks Boulevard. It has been disheartening as a homeowner to see all of the improvements that have been made on the Auburn Boulevard corridor, which look great, while my area, which is residential as soon as you turn off of Greenback to Mariposa, has really gone down the tubes. I wrote to a council member several years ago about my concern of a 7-Eleven convenience store going in on Greenback and Mariposa, and for the record was never responded to. My concerns have been realized as that any given time of day or night, there is vagrant and illicit activity happening in the parking lot. While the new sidewalks have been a good improvement for children in our area to walk to school, they have also been a throughway for more shopping cart and homeless traffic. I'm sure that it's not very family-friendly to see people urinating on the side wall of the 7-Eleven either. Every one of my neighbors has the same complaint as well, and one neighbor's young daughter almost picked up a syringe. I thought the corner of Greenback and Mariposa was slated as a beautification project several years ago, and while San Juan High School looks great, the other three corners leave a lot to be desired. Hopefully, this area will make the list again one day soon. I have also written about the Sunrise Mall 8 years ago. My concern at the time was the state of disrepair it had fallen into and needed at the very least a power wash and a coat of paint. More plantings would have been nice. Fast forward to today and one of the subjects of tonight's council meeting. While it's obvious that the mall area is an eyesore that is losing businesses regularly, I am concerned about the mixed-use wording of the proposed project. My first concern is that it will be a great place for vagrant activity and lots of benches to sleep on and hang out. The second concern I have is that we certainly don't need more apartment complexes in the area. We already have 5 between San Juan and Birdcage Lane. There are so many buildings that businesses have gone out of. How are we to entice new business to come to the new area? I like the idea of it, but let's try to recruit some new businesses to fill these buildings that are now boarded up and have dead landscaping. This is redundant, I apologize. We don't need any more apartments in this area. There are several developments proposed and approved already. I'm not as much of an informed citizen as I should be, but what I see happening in my city around me is making me become more involved, so that's always a good thing. At one time, I heard of a movie complex being considered. I don't know, and maybe I've missed out, but wouldn't sending out a survey to the citizens of Citrus Heights and asking for their feedback and ideas on what to do with the property and then solicit companies that could fulfill a need? I know we need the tax revenue, so let's find a solution that works for everybody. It's home ownership that will keep this city going, not more rentals that people move in and out of the city of. I support my city by shopping locally whenever possible, but that's becoming more difficult as businesses are leaving in droves. Thank you for listening to my opinions, and you can be sure I will be here again.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Our next speaker is Alexander Vasilenko.
Hello, Mayor and Council members. I'm here to talk about in support of item 7. I was a resident of Citrus Heights for the last 20 years, and I see it transform in a positive way. I know that as a millennial, when I want to go and hang out with friends, the last place we consider is Sunrise Mall. We usually go to Roseville. We usually go to Sacramento. And seeing the proposed developments makes me actually want to go to Sunrise Mall, because we do have a Citrus Town Center and Marketplace at Birdcage, which are really popular destinations. And if Sunrise Mall gets redeveloped, then these 3 positions, all in the Greenback and Sunrise intersection, it could become a really popular destination with visitors coming from other cities, and bringing traffic and money into our city instead of us going to other cities because they have better malls or better amenities. I would much more prefer if Citrus Heights has great amenities, so I can spend my money and time in the city instead of leaving the city. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And our third speaker on this topic is David Warren.
As you can see, I just flew in. I want to thank you for this opportunity. My concern this evening is that the resolution does not address the recent changes of state law requiring affordable housing when we're considering construction. I'm going to make a basic assumption, which I can't be sure of, but assuming that 50% of the 100 acres goes to housing and 50% goes to commercial, not an unreasonable postulate, that it's going to become very difficult to put in the affordable housing in such a small, compact area. The city of Citrus Heights lacks affordable housing. The housing costs have gone up tremendously. The city is looking at acquiring a parcel of land at Sylvan Corners and hopefully to sell it for residential purposes, and yet with the new laws associated with affordable housing, it's going to make it very difficult to build housing on that small lot. And if you only have 50 acres to build affordable housing within that complex, it's going to require extraordinarily dense housing. We don't need more dense housing in our community. Therefore, before we go any further and adopt this resolution, I believe it should be sent back for further study to make sure that when we let the property owners know what we expect from them as to the housing density, as well as the amount of commercial property that's going to be in the final plan. Because if we don't, they're going to be coming forward and saying, these are our plans, we've spent all this money, we've developed an EIR, and now you're telling us it's not going to be satisfactory. They should be front-loaded with this information. And for that reason, I believe this resolution should be sent back to staff so that these changes can be included in the proposed resolution, so when property owners receive this, they know exactly what they should be planning for. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for council comments. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Jeannie. I know we talked about mixed use, and that doesn't necessarily mean an apartment complex in that sense that it really talks about businesses on the first floor and possibly corporate or professional uses above, and possibly housing. There's a lot of confusion on what the city can and can't do as far as the mall goes. Now, this is just a general plan amendment. Some of the specifics Mr. Warren was talking about would be developed through the special plan and also the EIR. And I would agree with him that there's not enough affordable housing. I don't know if this would create it. We do have a quota we need to meet, and we look at that every year. So I do think that moving forward with this, the outreach and involvement, not only the property owners, but the public as well, in both what they'd like to see and also educational about, I mean, we don't pick the businesses. We have owners, and they have tenants, and so we really talk about what are acceptable uses as we go through this planning, rather than picking and choosing businesses. Of course, we're always trying to recruit and help the ownership group. One of the questions I did have for Mr. Kempener, this would, I asked you earlier about this, if viable tenants came along today and we put this into effect, would they be able to proceed with this, with bringing in new tenants, or would this halt everything until the special planning is done in the EIR?
We would work with the applicant to roll them into the specific planning IR. If you look at the timelines comparing if they were to go on their own versus the timeline for us to do this, they're very similar. So there's not that much of an advantage to do that. And then this ensures we have more of a comprehensive look at how all these little pieces come together rather than one little piece at a time.
And typically, don't we have the developer do the environmental review and pay for it? Typically,
Typically, that's the case.
on a single development property. Well, I like the idea that we're putting our money where our mouth is and assisting them reach their full potential through this process. And of course, then it will help expedite projects in the future because they don't have to go through this. So I do like how we're proceeding with this. And I think that's really all I mean, it's very important to me that we have open houses, workshop, and maybe even consider a citizens advisory committee moving forward with this. It's just extremely important to have the community input to this. And that's my comments.
All right, thank you. Mr. Daniels?
Thank you. There's no doubt the mall is extremely important to us. It's been there for almost 50 years, if I did my math right. And there's no doubt also that I think that we wouldn't have the city of Citrus Heights if there wasn't a Sunrise Mall. And so it's extremely important. But there's also has to be a realization that the times have changed. You see stores closing. You see Payless shoe stores closed recently, Crazy 8, Toys R Us left. Heard a report of Charming Charlie's going out. We don't have one of those in the mall, but they're pretty popular. But the point is, things are changing, and so retail-based malls, I don't know, and especially the size of ours, is something that can be sustained in the future. And so I think we do need to look at maybe doing something different with this mall. There are definitely opportunities to revitalize areas. Some of us have been around long enough to remember when Country Club Plaza was a thriving place, and then it went into the toilet, literally. And today it is being revitalized in a very nice way. Some of us have been here long enough to remember Birdcage when it opened and how exciting it was, and then how it just kind of just crumbled, you know, just nothing. Nobody went over to Birdcage. And now it's very popular, and a lot of people go over to Birdcage. And so the opportunity will be there, and we're hoping people just understand that our goal is to work with the mall ownership, with the anchor stores, because they own their properties, and to rebuild, revitalize. And so we have something that is good for the city, it's good for the residents, it's good for the owners, and everybody wins. There are, again, opportunities to do that. My hope is that we see the idea of the 2,500-seat stadium come back. I think that would be key to revitalizing the mall. And so there's still going to be opportunity there. I'm concerned about Mr. Warren's comments about the housing concerns, because I know that the state will do everything it can to make sure you fail. And so we've got to be very careful with that. But I don't think it's going to hold us back. And so I want everybody to understand, the city of Citrus Heights does not own the mall. We do not own the mall. We cannot tell them what to build. And we are just looking to have a voice in the process and hope that it is the best solution for everybody involved. That's it.
Yeah, to echo on Brett's comments, I mean, it's private property, there's 5, 6 owners. Our only recourse to have a say in the development process, quite frankly, is to come up with a specific plan and say, this is what we'd like to see. Legally, we can do that and, you know, work with the mall owners to try to reach that goal. I mean, anybody who's lived here in the last 30 years has seen that place go down. I mean, Macy's is a pretty profitable company. I can't believe they can't afford to paint the outside of their building. You know, I can't tell you how many times we've asked, and they don't really care, to be honest with you. So we want to come up with a specific plan to say this is what the city of Citrus Heights would like to see happen there, and we can hold their feet to the fire on that. Again, we can't pick and choose who comes in, but we can give them generalities of what we'd like to see. And the reason we're moving forward on this is because, you know, what we don't want to see is haphazard development, something over here, until not only, you know, the city council, but the whole process that we want to go through is, you know, involving the citizens, having meetings coming in. I'll be the first to tell you, Councilmember Miller, I would not support a citizens advisory committee on this because it will just elongate the time, and we can't afford to do that. Not that I don't want their input, but I'm sure we're going to have enough public meetings, open it up on the web to get those comments
Well, I
in.
think we can do it through workshops and open houses.
But I support this because, again, we've had 3 different mall owners for, not the anchor stores, they've been there, but, we all know about Sears, but 3 different owners over the last 22 years. They've all had plans, but none of them have come to fruition. Okay, we tried to work with them that way. Now we have to tell them what we want to see and move forward with that. So I fully support that, and I fully support moving forward with it tonight.
Thank you all for your comments. I just don't have a whole lot more to add, other than the fact that I do support this because, first of all, I don't think it ties the hands of anybody who wants to do something. It really brings it up to another level. I just want to, by comparison, smaller sample, but nevertheless by comparison, when we were faced close to 20 years ago with the proposition of developing Stock Ranch, we did something similar. We have that is also a specific planning area. We were able to put design standards there so that putting a Walmart in the middle of a residential community, as you know, is not the model that we really anticipated. There was a lot of resistance to that at the time because Walmarts were big boxes that were put out in the middle of nowhere and wouldn't impact residences. And because we have a specific plan at Stock Ranch, everything that happens there must come before the city council, and we were able to put operating standards in place, we were able to put design standards, so that that business community, which still, as you know, is developing, but we have a Costco, a restaurant, and we have a Walmart in the middle of a residential community that have become friendly neighbors to them because we as a city were proactive. And that's our intention here, is to be proactive, to put a master plan in place that is not specific by design, because we want to be a partner with the owners of the property, those that own it today, those that may own it in the future, to bring revitalization to the center of our city. It's often been referred to as our economic engine, and in order for that to pick up steam, to use that analogy, we really feel that we need to be part of the process. And that was further, I think, cemented into place after city manager, community economic development manager and I hopped a plane and flew to the East Coast to meet with the owners of the mall. And so they know we're doing this tonight, and they had a different vision, which quite frankly would not have carried our city into the future. So they are more amenable today than they were before, and so I fully support this. I feel that we are going to be doing our community a tremendous service by being at the table with the owners, and there are 5 separate property owners that comprise Sunrise Mall. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's 1. There are 5. And so with that having been said, if there are no further comments, I will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as recommended by staff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. It carries. Thank you all. Thank you, Casey, for all your work on this. Okay, next item, please.
Next item is public hearing number 8. The subject is resolution to record delinquent solid waste service charges on the tax roll, and the recommendation is to adopt a resolution to record delinquent solid waste service charges on the tax roll.
Casey, can I talk to you?
Good evening, Mayor Bruns, members of the City Council.
Mary, excuse me, before we go on, we did have one letter that the,
Casey mentioned it.
oh, did he mention this already? Okay, then carry on. Mary, sorry.
Good evening, Mayor Bruns, members of the City Council. Mary Poole with the General Services Division, here regarding the public hearing and resolution of intention to record delinquent solid waste fees. And I just want to do a quick review of what is on the agenda here tonight, and then turn it back over for the public hearing. So let me back up here. So The motion is to conduct the public hearing for any and all persons having objections to the proposed collection of delinquent solid waste charges, penalties, and interest through the county tax roll. And in addition, for the city council to adopt the resolution of intention to record those delinquent solid waste charges, penalties, and interests on the tax roll. The authority for this resides within the government code, Section 38790.1, as well as the Citrus Heights Municipal Code, Chapter 34. And this provides the city council the authority to record these charges and also provides that a public hearing be held, as I just mentioned. So as of July 9th, there are 894 delinquent accounts within the city's residential services. You may remember that we first talked about this in June, where we had almost 1,300. So since then, people have been taking care of their delinquent accounts. The past due balance is nearly $400,000, with penalties and interests of nearly $40,000, with a total due of $418,480. So the process we're going through is that on June 13th, the City Council set the public hearing for tonight. The city published the notice of the public hearing in the Sacramento Bee. Republic Services has been mailing notices regularly to these accounts of their delinquency status, but specifically related to this public hearing, they were also noticed. The public hearing is again tonight. There will be an additional reconciliation in August, so that if there's any other people coming in to get their accounts cleaned up, that'll happen, and we'll recognize those. And then the city will submit the listed amounts due to the county so they can place them on the tax roll. Then the county will forward those payments to the city in January and May of 2020. And the city will forward these payments to Republic Services, who has been providing services and not being paid. And then just a little bit of historical information. 1,244 accounts back in May. Now we have 894 accounts, but that generally happens between the first notification and the actual putting the balances on the tax roll. And in conclusion, we're back to the motion before you tonight. Do you have any
Okay.
questions?
Well, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the hearing. And we do have one speaker sheet this evening. And I'd like to invite Nick Kamatis to come forward, please.
Good evening,
Good evening.
members of the council here. This property is at 6225 Burntwood Way in Citrus Heights. My family, my sister and her husband has invested monies in it to loan the owner on title on the property. Subsequently, this owner went through bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy court gave an order to transfer title to my family. That has not happened. The trustee of the court mishandled the procedure. So we're right now trying to go through a legal process to correct the title to the proper owners of the property. The owner on title has abandoned, basically, and he was dispossessed of it. Our problem here is that the property being vacant at this time, it has been vacant for some time. The company Republic Services is assessing what they call waste management service charges, and I highlight the word service charges. There has been no service received or utilized. We've been advising this company, and we've advised even the city here, Public Works Department, that there is no service in there. There is no one generating any waste management whatsoever. So we have basically objection to the idea of being charged for a service and putting that on the tax roll, because it is not tax item. It is a service charge and fee for service proposition. That's basically the point I would like to come in here and explain to you members of the council.
Thank you.
And,
Mary, you want to respond to that, please?
and I'm a little bit difficulty of hearing if you.
So we're going to ask Ms. Poole to respond to that, to you, sir.
So Nick, this is Mary over here.
I'm sorry?
This lady over here, Mary?
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
So Nick and I met earlier before the meeting, and I did let him know that we would work with Republic Service to see what we could do regarding this account within the constraints of the municipal code.
Okay.
And state law. So, and we talked about that, and so we'll be meeting with you directly afterward, and then tomorrow probably, because it sounds like it's a fairly complicated case.
It does, unusual situation.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Understand conclusion? Is there a follow-up meeting?
Yes. I'll be following up with you directly after this item, so I can meet you in the back of the room. Okay. You're
All
welcome.
right. Thank you for coming, sir. Are there any other parties that would like to come forward and make public comment? If not, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Call for a vote.
Before we go, Amy, there was a woman here earlier tonight on this very matter. Was she able to talk to staff on that, or did?
Yes, she was able to talk with staff.
Okay.
So we actually had two other residents who were here earlier tonight. They didn't really want to speak
I get it.
on,
I just wanted to make sure they had an
but
opportunity
we
to talk.
did speak with them extensively and are working through their
Thank you.
concerns as well.
Thank you very much. All right.
Move approval of the item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this item. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, it carries. Next item, please.
Next item is regular calendar, item 9. The subject is request city council recommendation regarding AB 626, micro enterprise kitchen operations. And the recommendation is to receive city council review on the bill and direct staff to forward an opt-in or opt-out recommendation to the county board of supervisors.
Good evening, Council. Allison Bermudez with the Planning Division here. Want to talk about AB 626. I did briefly update you on this a couple months ago, but we're here tonight for your formal direction. So AB 626 is a bill that was passed in January. And the way it was passed, it created these new food facility types called MICOs, or Micro Enterprise Home Kitchens. And it does allow a food prepared at home to be sold from the home through either dine-in methods or delivery methods. So a person could cook their special food that they prepare or type of meal and sell it to the public direct from their home. And it sounds a little bit like, what's going on? So why this happened is the legislature was working with several home cooks. This has kind of been an underground type business, has been occurring for a long time through social media sites and some online groups. There's even some phone apps that you can get where you can connect to a home cook, and they would bring the food to you. And they were running into obvious problems in many jurisdictions, having enforcement issues. So through those groups, they approached the legislature and asked that, if it could be legalized, so they wouldn't have to be underground. And they did get it through, so that was the result of AB 626. The legislature supported that idea, but the uniqueness of it is that they supported AB 626, but it had to be accepted by the county or the enforcement agency who does food. So bringing that to our situation, we're under the the health department with Sacramento County. So it falls in Sacramento County's purview whether to opt in and accept AB 626 to operate in our area, or they could opt out. So why we don't have the official determination to say tonight whether we want it in Citrus Heights or we don't, it falls on the county. The county is asking for our preference, and then that will be, they will consider that.
Okay.
Go a little bit quickly through the legislation of what it stated. It did limit the home cook to 30 meals per day or 60 meals per month. The food must be prepared and served on the same day. Allows you to have a full-time employee, not including family, report to the home, and you are limited in sales to $50,000 a year, and food handler cards are required. There is no business license required for the operation of the Mikos. It's actually silent in the law. Zoning cannot prohibit a home cook to operate their business, and we can't alter our residential zoning to specifically call it out that they're not allowed. So any residential zone, this would be allowed. We can't require extra parking or any parking requirements, any building modifications. What's kind of unknown on that, since it's federally, is the ADA regulations. So that's something that would have to be worked out, whether they would have to do any upgrades to their home if they're not ADA compliant. There's no additional fire or sewer requirements. And the property would be inspected by the health department one time per year on a scheduled basis, which is different from traditional food restaurants who get surprise inspections 3 times a year. If it's a residence, they would have to be scheduled in advance, and they would only have it once. So the Board of Supervisors is charged with making this decision, and they have 3 options. They can say our county, Sacramento County, is going to opt in. If they choose that, then all jurisdictions in Sacramento County would allow Mikos under the legislation. They could opt out, and they could say, no, it's not allowed in Sacramento County, or they could take the path and do nothing, saying kind of wait and see, we're on hold. Statewide, there's 1 county that has opted in, and that's where this originated from, in Riverside, and they are allowing them. They have started to receive permits. I think there are 6 or 7 permits that Riverside County has for Mikos, but so far they are the only county that I'm aware of that has opted in. Let's see. So I just want to discuss this with you. Any feedback? I don't have all the answers and questions, kind of get if there's a consensus, and then I would like to draft a resolution, take it to the Board of Supervisors so they understand what Citrus Heights opinions are, and so they could consider that at their board meeting when they make the decision. That board meeting is not scheduled yet. Originally, it was supposed to be in July. I think getting all the feedback from the jurisdictions is taking a little bit longer, but I do expect it this summer.
Okay, are there any questions?
I have some
Steve?
questions.
I don't have any questions, but I have comments, so I'll let him go.
Hang on, let me ask some questions. Isn't there an existing law that permits this already?
So this is different than cottage food, which is probably what you're thinking. So cottage food is allowed, and that came a couple years ago. The difference being that cottage food are your baked goods or your food that doesn't have to be kept at a certain temperature. So the cakes, the cookies, the brownies, things like that. That's been very successful. A lot of people kind of did this also underground, but when they adopted cottage food, we've seen many new businesses come alive that have actually came into commercial centers now because they've outgrown their home. So that was a very positive thing in the industry. This is different, is going to allow the meats, the food that has to be kept at certain temperatures, refrigerated, cooked, things like that. So it is a big change from cottage foods.
Thanks for your answer. Is there a deadline on this to opt in, opt out? I mean, I know the county wants to move forward with our opinion, but.
There is not a deadline that I'm aware of, so they could just do nothing and remain silent.
Sure.
And kind of wait and see.
A couple of my concerns that you brought up, and no business license, is that prohibited from us?
The way that it's been interpreted from the law, since it wasn't stated, and they really, the law says that jurisdictions don't have any control over that, it's taken that we can't require that.
And so there's no special thought when you're cooking to, fire suppression? Would this be allowed in apartments?
Multifamily or single family.
And then another concern, and I don't know how our building department feels about this, but when we do a commercial kitchen, or any kind of kitchen really, that sells food, the sewer lines, food eats right through PVC, which is what's underneath most of our houses. Even cast iron it'll eat through. There's a special piping that's needed for kitchens, and legislature didn't even consider that.
Correct, and is my understanding that the county did meet with the sewer district. They weren't as concerned about that. They didn't have concerns.
Well, yeah, it won't affect their pipes.
Yeah, but it is a concern for many of us that would be an issue. But, right, the legislation doesn't allow or require any changes to that.
Yeah, I don't think they realize. Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, not surprising that Sacramento passed, the state passed legislation that they've never thought all the way through. So, you know, the cottage industry, again, baked goods, I get that. Besides the concerns that Steve raised, I'll be perfectly honest with you, and I don't begrudge anybody a job or making money, but I don't support this for a couple reasons. One, and goes to nobody in here, nobody watching television, but there's a lot of people who are slobs out there. I'm sorry, but, you know, knowing that today you go to a restaurant and it can be inspected and there's certain health standards that have to be met, this, you know, it's your residence. Somebody comes to the door, you don't let them in, you can do whatever you want. So, I mean, you hear about businesses causing, E. coli poisoning, et cetera, and they've got all the safeguards in place. Now we're going to open it up to, you know, just people like me. And in my business, I go out, or in the past, I've gone out to a lot of residences, and I don't even want to tell you the various things I've seen. So for me, I wouldn't, you know, somebody I don't know say, yeah, bring me over dinner, or, you know, go over to their house and pick it up. Also concerned, no parking requirements, whatever. If my neighbor wants to open one of these, it can suddenly become a drive-through on my street, and legally, there's nothing I can do about it. There's something to this that could be worked out, but the way it is now, I don't see it, and personally, I don't support it.
Brett?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's designed for a very small operation. You said 30 a day, but 60 a month? So 60 a month, if you're working 5 days a week, you know, you're making, you know, 3 meals a day. So I don't know if it'll really affect the pipes so much. Am I not on? I'm on. You know, we make more than that at the house now, and sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. But I have concerns also about whether or not the ability to do this is going to affect people around there. Sometimes I live in pretty dense housing, and sometimes I come home and a neighbor is cooking something that just smells absolutely wonderful, just wonderful. You know, trying to find that neighbor. And then sometimes I'll come home and go like, oh my God, what is that? And you can't keep it out of the house because the windows are open and it's there. And so I have that kind of concern. But I don't have as much concern about the food quality side of it, because I see it as kind of buyer beware, you know? I mean, if you want to pick something up from, you know, Mama Linda's house down at the end of the corner because she makes great tamales or whatever, buyer beware, you know? And I would think that Mama Linda wants to have a good relationship, so she's going to wash her hands before she makes her tamales so her customers don't get sick. But I'm sure there'll be folks that don't do certain things they should do, and who knows, but buyer beware. But I see this as an opportunity for a society that is on the go all the time. And right now, a lot of times we just stop by and we pick up something maybe from fast food, which isn't so great, and feed it to our kids and things like that. And maybe this is another opportunity to do something a little bit better quality. And then I also see this as a great opportunity as for somebody who just doesn't have the money to open up a restaurant or even something very small, but they have the ability to start something and then build something. And I think if this does go forward, there's just no doubt in my mind that we'll hear a success story along the way of somebody who started by cooking something in their kitchen for their neighbors. So I'm a little bit leery. I have some of those concerns, but I'm on the side of supporting it, and because it can always come back and be modified by the state if it gets too much negative about it. And so, but yeah, some of those concerns. I can't understand the dine-in concept. I don't know if that would be popular, but it might be. But and then the last thing I wanted to ask about was sales tax. It would seem to me that since they're preparing food, they're going to have to charge sales tax on this food. And that's an opportunity, again, for us to increase our sales tax base, which is always important. But who knows? But at this point, I'm kind of leaning towards favoring it and seeing how it works.
Okay, so, you know, on the surface, as a person who works from home and enjoys that opportunity, it sounds like a really good idea to give people the opportunity to start something that can grow into something bigger. I just don't think this is well thought out. And Mike, you know, the fact that it is, there's no limit to where they're doing this. I mean, if you're in an apartment complex and someone is cooking cabbage, sorry, but that's not going to smell very good.
That's what it was.
Cabbage, yeah. So I'm concerned about the fact that there is no requirement from a size standpoint of how big the, I mean, you could have a one-bedroom apartment and the whole thing could become a food-producing plant, you know, under this, and I don't think that's the intention. Also, Brett brought up sales tax, you know, how is that going to even be monitored or policed for that? I mean, I don't envision these people probably are going to charge sales tax, I would think. So I've got way too many questions. I think the idea is, I love cottage industries, I think the idea is nice, but you've also got the whole temperature thing and food safety just bothers me, you know. Is there a requirement for them to wear, you know, latex gloves, or are they going to be handling the food with their own hands? It just, if I had to come down on one side or the other, I would say, not now. You know, give us something better for me to be able to support it. So I guess Steve, are you a no, or are you a yes, or a maybe, or what?
I'd kind of like, you know, again, this is typical state taking away some local control. I'm not so concerned about sales tax. I mean, I do think it's a great way for someone to start a business or what have you, but I have more concerns about it.
That's true.
And so I'm not inclined to support it now. I'd like to.
Yeah, you know, that's the other thing too, is as you were speaking, Ally, that thought crossed my mind, you know, we have no say. If it's a yes for the county, then we are forced as a city to comply. And so based on that too, doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, if they opt in, we're in.
Right.
As written by law. We can't modify anything
Right. Yeah.
as our own.
Right. So a couple other questions came up. You said Riverside County opted in. Have any of the counties opted out, or are they just holding?
Generally, from my understanding, most are on this wait and see path, which maybe I'm kind of feeling from you guys too, where it's not, like you think, maybe it could be okay, but there's just not enough in this legislation as written to fully support it. So I think that seems to be the more common way that many of them are going.
Yeah, so I guess if there's, in a minute, Brett, if there's only one county that's opted in and everybody else is waiting and seeing, they're just basically looking at Riverside County to see how it's going to shake out. Okay, yeah, Brett?
What was the follow-up legislation?
They're mostly health-related issues. As you can imagine, environmental health has been very active in this, so a lot of it was cleanup to their regulations through the Health and Safety Code, which the specifics I can't recall, but it was fine-tuning. They weren't anything significant that would address the concerns that we're just talking about.
Okay, all right. So do we have this is a consensus issue, right?
Yeah, so if you want to just give a consensus what you think, I could prepare a resolution that I would send to the Board of Supervisors, you know, restating the actions or your decisions, so they could consider it.
Okay, so we don't have to actually vote on this, do we? We can just do consensus. Our consensus is just, we want to wait and see how this is going to play out in Riverside County, and see if something further comes through legislatively to make this more viable.
So the resolution would say something like, there's still too many unanswered questions, and in the future, we'd be happy to consider it again, or consider it
something like
again.
that, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks very much. Okay. Next item, please.
Next item, regular calendar, item number 10. The subject is approval of contract for city attorney services.
Okay. Recently, we put out an RFP for attorney services, and after an interview process, a look at the contract, we are here tonight to consider whether or not to offer a contract to the firm of Jones and Mayer. And so, is there any comments from the council, or are we ready to take this to the vote?
Move approval.
It's second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the contract with Jones and Mayer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, it carries. Yeah, next item, please.
The next item is department reports, and we do have one report. It's update from the police department on the 2019 Independence Day responses.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Alex Turcott, I'm the Patrol Services Division Commander for the Police Department. And I'm here tonight to provide a brief overview of our fireworks and 4th of July enforcement. In preparing for this, we know, as was stated earlier, for both police and fire, this is a pretty active night, a lot of things going on. So we take proactive steps to prepare for that. Ahead of our operations this year, we had a media campaign focusing on public education tools, including how to distinguish between illegal fireworks and safe and sane fireworks, how to report illegal fireworks, and then overall fire safety. And that was accomplished mostly through our social media efforts and then with a few radio spots on KFBK and similar. Internally, just provided refresher training on our protocols for enforcing fireworks and the various codes and issues that go along with that, including disposal and booking and that type of thing. Doing historical research, we looked at our previous problem areas and identified those areas for proactive patrols. And those were areas for our patrols to kind of increase visibility and try to thwart these issues before they became out of hand. We had an operation plan with dedicated patrol officers focusing on both DUI and separately on fireworks. So there was between 2 and 4 of those officers each night, and this period was between July 3rd through July 5th. In summary, in that time period between the 3rd and the 5th, Police Department responded to exactly 200 firework-related calls, conducted 60 traffic stops, arrested 3 DUI offenders, and it was determined, not surprisingly, the time between 8 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. was the busiest time period for fireworks, though there were some calls throughout the night. We compare that to our 3-year average of our data. We see that there was a slight increase in calls for service, about 15 more than we have had over our baseline. We had the average amount of traffic stops and the average number of DUI arrests for that particular period over the last 3 years. And with that, is there any questions?
So 200 calls.
Yes, sir.
So is all the confiscated fireworks over there at the police station, or were they just curious?
Or they disappear.
I don't have that data currently.
Okay, thank you.
So you responded to 200 calls. How many calls came in?
Oh, I'm sorry, we responded out to all of the calls that came in, so it's 200.
So 200 calls came in, okay. It just seems like, the gentleman that spoke earlier tonight, every year just seems to get scarier and scarier. I mean, so I'm wondering if there is a way, can you tell if you hear it, can you tell an illegal firework from an illegal firework?
A lot of times there is some definite resonance difference, but a lot of times the illegal ones are up in the air and bright for everyone to
Right,
see.
and they leave the ground, yeah. Okay. Well, I know it's a difficult night for everybody, so thank you for being out there and doing just a good job at patrolling it all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments?
I used to enjoy going out and see the fireworks shows and displays, Cal Expo, even when we had them at the mall, loved it. I have to stay home now with our dog. And
Yep,
I
me
can't
too.
even imagine, you brought up veterans, I can't even imagine a war veteran, what they have to go through. It's so frustrating. Could you go over just real quickly, I've had people call out and say, well, if you police don't see it happening, they can't do anything about it. And I don't know of a neighbor that would go out in front of a group of people and said, he did it. Your house would get egged the next day, or if not sooner. What are the procedures for people reporting that and best ways to deal with the illegals, fireworks?
So in general, if we have information on where the illegal firework originated, the officers can go conduct an investigation and knock on the door. Most of our calls for service are a general area where they were seen, and so the officers will drive through and see if they can identify those areas with the time allotted between that call and the next call coming in for them. It is a difficult enforcement because many times once one of those aerial fireworks has gone off, the offending person and launcher is no longer readily visible. But it is something that they look at. As far as being in possession, it depends on really the type of firework, because an illegal firework can be just above a snap cap type of a thing all the way up to what would amount to a stick of dynamite. So depending on that level would be dependent on the crime. Some of them do count as certified explosives, and we work with our partners in the fire department and the county's explosive ordinance disposal detail to kind of figure out the severity. But in general, it's generally a ticket if you're caught with what you would consider an average illegal firework that you would purchase out of state.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Right. Next item, please.
Next item is city manager items, and there are none. The next is items requested by council members and any future agenda items.
Anybody? Okay. Well, seeing nobody, no further business, then we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for coming.